flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you haven't signed the register in the back, we'd appreciate it if you do so. Roll call of the board.
Ms. Dawn. Here. Mr. Hernandez.
Present.
Mr. Padilla. Here. Ms. Quintero.
Present.
Mr. Crouch.
Present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn.
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez.
Aye.
Mr. Padilla.
Yes.
Ms. Quintero.
Aye.
Mr. Crouch.
Aye. Next we have board comments. Ms. Dawn.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for braving the heat and being here this evening. We haven't done a lot in the school district during the summer, but one of the things that we did have was, I know we had some classes and some things for the students, and most especially the important things that we had food that we were able to give to our students that were needing food. So that was a really great, I think, community thing that we did. This last week, I did go to a mariachi concert over here at Sunnyside High School. We had over 30 students from all over the city coming here to Sunnyside to learn the trade of mariachi music, and it was wonderful to see the auditorium filled with so many parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, all cheering, all of them with their phones recording. It was cool. Everybody they were just taking pictures. You could tell because they stayed there for a while throughout the whole thing, just recording. Then you had the parents that had the big cameras that were recording with the old-fashioned cameras, and so it was really neat to see everybody so excited. And I like the fact that they had not just a few singers, but they would bring them up like in 3, 4, 5 at a time, so that the parents could see all of their kids coming up and singing, and so that the kids also had confidence to come up and sing, not just one at a time to this large group of kids. So that was really neat to have the culture, the traditions continue this summer.
Ms. Quintero.
Not at this time, thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
I just want to publicly recognize Kathy and Roxana for their new positions. I wasn't here before to congratulate them in person, so I'm very excited for both of you. It's very sad to see both of you leaving, but believe me, I will be calling both of you, maybe not as a school board member, but as a state representative, to pick your brains and to make sure that we keep in touch. So thank you so much for all of your service to the students here in Sunnyside, and hopefully continued success to you all. But again, we're really sad to see you go, especially me, because I had to wait a couple weeks to be able to say it publicly. So thank you, both of you, for all of your hard work, and I am glad to be back in person after a little bit of a break. So thank you so much.
Mr. Hall.
So thank you very much, both of you. We are going to miss you, but still have your home. We still have a phone. We still have an email.
Don't be strangers.
Don't be strangers.
Thank you. We plan on it. Definitely.
Thank you, of course.
And there are plenty of connections to Sunnyside for both of you. So. The other thing I'd like to add is that we have a graduation on Thursday night for our summer graduation. I just want to celebrate our students that are graduating this summer that have completed the coursework and met all the requirements. So I just want to congratulate them. Mr. Holmes, Superintendent's report.
It's President Crouch, members of the Governing Board, members of the audience. I'll start by actually echoing a couple of items, specifically our summer graduation. I believe we're looking close to 60 graduates after summer school. Their hard work was being recognized with a ceremony this Thursday. I believe it starts at 6 p.m. We'll confirm that particular time, but that's going to be a wonderful opportunity just to give those who missed on their graduation ceremony an opportunity to actually graduate. And it's actually being held at Sunnyside High School, their auditorium. We also have the Junior Shark Tank. This is a great opportunity. I think Kathy was kind of raised awareness for us and got us involved in this. It's the system steering youth to science, technology, engineering, and math Coalition in collaboration with PCJTED, Sunnyside Unified School District, and the Pima County One Stop Arizona at Work Youth Career Connect Grant. They've been hosting Junior Shark Tank Entrepreneurship Summer Program at Star Academic High School for 15 high school students. And students have been working on their new products and services and ideas and business plans with assistance from local business and industry professionals. So students will pitch their ideas to a panel of judges at competition night. This will be Friday, June 30th from 3 to 7 at Pima Community College downtown campus. So we have another event of seeing our wonderful kids pitch their Shark Tank ideas, so that's a great opportunity. And as Ms. Dawn mentioned, we had the summer mariachi program. We had four, I think for me, not only all the students and family and what the people that we bring, but I thought it was, I want to recognize the teachers. We have 4 teachers there who just are creating some great synergy around re-sparking interest in the mariachi programs here in our district. Mr. Dong, we have Ms. Pina over at Gallegos, Ms. Nosagaray, who's new, who's actually over at Sierra, and Ms. Perot, who's been over at Liberty as well. And so the 4 of them kind of exhibit what we like to actually, Richard Carranza, a good friend and colleague of mine who's now superintendent of Houston, going to term compadrerismo. So the idea of being a kind of family of instructors working together to really improve the lives of our kids, and that really shows with these 4 instructors who just did a wonderful job. So I want to give them definitely some recognition. Lastly, if you're wondering why I'm not wearing a tie up here, my suitcase is still at the airport. I got a ride over here because we just landed about 10 minutes ago. Miss Benton, myself, Ms. Montaño from some of your principal, and Jessica Cole from some of you were presenting at the Chief Schools Officer Conference that's specifically geared towards assessment. That particular project we're engaged with West Ed and Department of Education actually flew all 4 of us out to Austin to present the work that we're beginning and engaged in. And some of you is a school, and Jessica in particular, who's really gotten really deep in her understanding of this idea of formative assessments, what it means, how it has a potential to really improve performance in our classrooms. In present, we're professors from New Zealand, Australia, and Great Britain who are been engaged in some work for about a few decades, and I thought they were very impressed with the advancements we made in the short time that we've been really engaged in the work. The Department of Ed was there as well, representing and very proud of that partnership that we have with them. We're hoping to continue year 3 in the program that we're looking to ensure that there's funding for. So the Department of Ed is in the middle of writing a grant with Margaret Heritage, who's the one who's really the brains behind this kind of concept that we're trying to implement, which is formative assessment. And the governing board, you had an opportunity to see the students from Esperanza. They were on tape, who were kind of exhibiting what we call student agency, where they're giving each other peer feedback. And one of the young women that was in that second grader was talking about collaboration, how she uses her skills to collaborate and be able to share ideas with her second grade colleagues as well. So I think we're on to some really great work that will help advance some of the ideas that we have in our kind of theory of action for improving performance. So here we go. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes, I have on my calendar 5:30 for the graduation on Thursday, so.
Perfect, thank you.
That's correct.
Oh, do you?
Getting some head nods out in the audience, too. Thank you, Ms. Dutter. Well, we have no recognitions tonight. Next on the agenda is call to the audience. Yolanda Herrera.
I'm short, but not that short. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Holmes, board president, members of the audience, and staff. My name is Yolanda Herrera. I've been in this area now for over 65 years, and I'm a Sunnyside Unified School District graduate with several other generations following and one before me. I'm here before you to discuss a little bit about the water issues and coverage that I've been seeing, discussions that I've been seeing on the news media. I'm also the current Unified Community Advisory Board Community Co-Chair, which we clarify information on water contamination cleanup issues. There will be several public forums coming up. I will send you the information so that you can post if you care to on the district page. Our next Unified Community Advisory meeting is going to be July 19th at 5:45 at El Pueblo Senior Center, and we invite all members of the public. We hope the district will still be at that table. Pima County Health Department is also working on a workshop forum to address the health concerns and issues. So again, that's really important and good information to get out to the public to answer all the misconceptions that are currently being spewed out there. I want just to remind everybody to get educated with correct facts before you go out and give incorrect information, inadequate info. It tends to help you lose, or it tends to lose credibility. Remember, it's all about perception. So take caution in how you represent the district doing working on personal issues. I spend a lot of time, and even more so lately, putting out fires and trying to clarify misinformation. And I'm, like you, just a volunteer with nobody pays for my expenses. Tucson does deliver clean, safe water. South of Irvington, our water comes from the Avon Valley water fields. I know a lot of people think on this side of town that we're getting it from the TARP AOP plant, but we are not. That water is being delivered to people on the north side of town. And I'm here before you because part of my job as a community co-chair is to do community outreach. So on the final note, I just want to tell everybody to stay cool.
Thank you, Ms. Herrera. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Mr. Crouch?
Ms. Long?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is, under general functions, is naming of trust and update. Dr. Bergman.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the board, Superintendent Holmes, and members of the audience. Tonight, we're bringing forward to you two items, one for action and one for continued discussion. The first one is naming of the trust, and if you recall, the last board meeting in early June, we brought to you, you discussed various versions of what the trust could be called. Tonight, we need you to finalize it and land on a name for the trust that will oversee the insurance, being that now that we're insured. And then finally, I attached a document, which is the final draft of the trust agreement for your review, so that if you had any additional questions, you wanted to make any additional changes, this is the time to do it, because at the next board meeting, we're going to bring it forward for your approval. And I have CBIZ here to help address any questions, and we also feel it's real important if you have any legal issues that we can contact the legal support who helped draft this piece. And we could have them online so they could then address any questions that you may have pertaining to legal issues. So first, how about we talk about naming of the trust? And I'm going to invite CBIZ to come up. And it's really, I'm going to give it back to you to start that discussion of what you would like that. This is Eric. Yeah. And he is here to answer any questions about the naming process if we need that as well. So I'm going to pull up the document, but we can start the discussion on the name.
First, do you have recommendations for names? And I know we talked about them last time.
Sure.
Yeah.
I believe it was Ms. Dong last time that recommended, or the SUSD 12, the EBT or Employee Benefits Trust can be very simple as that. Doesn't have to be anything too complicated. So I think that was the recommendation from the last meeting that we would then bring back. And if there were any other thoughts as far as revising that or changing that at all, now would be the time to have that discussion.
Any discussion from the board or any questions?
I like keeping it simple.
You talked about using the acronym SUSD. I know did you say this a minute ago? I'm sorry, I was focused on that instead of just using Sunnyside, you use SUSD.
12.
Yeah, 12.
SUSD 12.
Yep.
Trust. So it's up to you guys.
Sounds
Give it.
good.
Trust or employee benefit trust?
I think you would want
EBT.
Employee benefits trust.
Right.
Just to make
Right.
sure
Yeah.
that you correctly
Right.
describe it.
Exactly.
Ms. Stone?
So, hearing no other thoughts on that, other than that everybody wants to keep it short and simple, I move that we call our trust the Sunnyside, the SUSD 12 Employee Benefit Trust.
I'll second that. But I was going to ask, it's not LLC or Inc. or anything, it's just that, right?
That's right.
Okay. Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Okay. And the next item you have before us.
What we have before you is the trust agreement. And as you know, I've given it to you twice. This is the final draft that we're recommending that you move forward, but we also want you to be able to feel comfortable asking any questions or making changes, or, this is the time to lay it out there so that if there is something that's concerning, we can find an answer.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Crouch and Dr. Bergman, can you just give a quick overview of kind of the trust oversight? How does that work in relationship to the board and in relationship to the district? Just how do they operate as an entity? And maybe that's something that our consultant, just so we're clear on the reporting lines for the trust, because they are a separate entity, but how does that function when it comes to reporting and any issues that may arise?
So if I could, I'll answer that.
I'm fine.
Thank you for your time today. So, the Employee Benefits Trust Board is separate from the governing board, and as you recall in the last conversation at the last board meeting, we discussed how our recommendation was not to have a governing board member as a member of the Employee Benefits Trust, but to have an employee, and generally from the human resources or finance function, as a participant in that board. With that as a stipulation in your trust documents, that requires that you have 5 board members, a total of 5. So it would be 1 employee of the district and 4 freestanding at-will, recommended or approved by the governing board candidates and participants on them as board members. So the board really operates separately. They have their own schedule criteria, they have their oversight, and they work in conjunction with finance to make sure the claims are paid for the plan, and make sure that with HR, to make sure the benefits are delivered and communicated to the employees each year. They will go through annual renewals, just as is common today, so that each year they'll make sure that they have a reinsurance policy, they have claims administration function, they have a network that they are using for their medical benefits. Another recommendation from the attorney was that at the beginning, even though the trust will not pay for all of the benefits, that you put all of those benefits in language in the trust document, so that in the future days you might want to include dental insurance or vision insurance, life and disability insurance as benefits to be paid under the trust. So that will be added as language in the trust. But does that answer your question, Mr. Holmes?
And the trust basically reports to the board, is that correct?
The
Trust
trust
board?
really makes recommendations, and then the board has final approval of both board members of the trust, as well as the final approvals that the board puts forward to for annual renewals, benefit levels, things like that.
So there's an application form for the board members?
There's a general conflict of interest statement that they have to fill out. There is an application, and you have a couple of candidates already that have filled those out, a couple of very good candidates. Our recommendation is that you have someone that has not a vested interest, but certainly a tie to the district, a reason to want to serve the district, to come back and serve the district, and you've got a couple of candidates so far. We'll need a couple of more to fill out the board.
And we put out feelers. We've made some contacts with individuals in the district to try to generate some additional names. I know Mr. Holmes has also talked about, do you guys have any names that you could suggest to us as well? We'd like to have, I'd like to be able to bring forward with you, a group of applications that you can then decide who those 4 are going to be and then name at a board meeting. So, but we have 2 right now, and we're trying to generate additional names as well.
And as we discussed in the last meeting, generally you would like to have someone potentially with a healthcare background, potentially a finance background, perhaps accounting, those types of candidates.
So that they have a knowledge base to be able to work and move forward.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes, Hector, we have that trust, the insurance right now, when people get hurt.
We currently have insurance coverage for our property liability insurance with the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust.
The risk one. Now, would you say, because we've used that forever, would you say that it's going to kind of be somewhat similar?
It's going to be very similar to that, exactly, but from the employee benefit side.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering, because when I was listening and reading all this other stuff, and I was thinking about that, I was seeing a lot of similarities.
When we talk about the trust, I now have to clarify, are we talking
Right.
trust for risk, or are we talking trust for insurance? Because they're both related to that, but now we'll have the new name.
Risk.
But I can assure you that it won't be at all like the other trust we used to belong to that covered the insurance, A-SHIP.
Oh, yes.
A-SHIP had went away.
Yes, the Part A will not be anything like
okay.
that, because that was from the very beginning not properly priced in regards to the premiums that were charged and the groups that were brought in. So it was a problem. So it won't be anything at all, because first of all, we'll be ourselves. We won't have any other risk to undertake from other school districts. So that was the problem with A-SHIP.
Mr. Hernandez?
I have 2 quick questions, Dr. Bergman. The first is when we're looking at employees to potentially have on the board of the trust or as trustees, have we given any consideration to what kind of class of employees do we want? Administrators versus classified versus certified?
Yeah. I need to make some clarification with that.
Go ahead.
When we're looking at the employee who will sit on it, it's going to either be Ms. Emsley, the HR director, or myself. And I'm leaning more towards Ms. Emsley because of her benefits background and what it is that she has a solid knowledge base. She oversaw and conducted and facilitated the in-district insurance committee over the last 5 years, the bids, everything. And so she is the individual we're looking at. Now, and that's the employee piece.
Mhm.
And the other 4 are not employees, but they are hopefully active members of our community.
Mhm.
Who want to give back in some capacity and are submitting the applications. And that's what we're seeing so far in the 2 that have done that already.
Okay. And then the second question is, you mentioned that the board will still have final approval. Would that just be something that would be submitted during, and this may be more of a technical question for Mr. Holmes, something that would just be submitted as a consent agenda item when things come up, or would it be, every time that the trust makes a decision has to come before the board for a discussion and approval, or would it be folded into what we have in other processes?
Mr. Crouch, Mr. Hernandez, I envision us still using the processes that we have in place when the recommendations come forth, vetting with IBB, coming to the board, and probably more of a general function, since insurance is such a big item every year. If there's significant change, I think it's a good practice to continue it having a little bit more both vetting and then more public discourse around it in a general functions area. Just kind of similar to how we've continued to perform, but the oversight will be led by this trust group. But I still see IBB being a place by which the recommendations come and become vetted, so they know where we're going with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, I'll add to that, which is I think you want to have some clear separation between the board on a daily functionality basis from the trust, And then on an annual basis, they would come to you with recommendations for what the plans might look like the following year. And then they would come to you with any requests for additional funding if that were needed or something along those lines. But only for the major items because of the nature of the self-funded plan and trust, you want to have some separation between the governing board and the trust board.
Ms. Stone?
The board, being a board for the trust, and are they going to be following the same open meeting laws as all other boards?
Yes. Yes, they will. And much of that is governed by statute. They do, however, get to set their own meeting schedule. So some boards meet monthly, some meet bi-weekly, some meet quarterly, so they do set their schedule.
And they'll determine that once we know who they
It's
are.
constituted.
Yeah.
But they will post online agendas and everything?
Yes.
Just as any other creature of this board.
Correct.
Any other discussion?
No?
So this is not an action item, it's an
No, this is
information
not.
only.
This is purely informational for you to ask those questions, and we'll bring it back to you in July.
That's good.
Hopefully they'll have more information about our candidates.
And then-
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the proposed, I'm sorry, I'm skipping one here. Next item on the agenda is consideration and possible adoption of resolution ordering and authorizing all matters necessary for a 12% maintenance and operations budget override election to be held on November 7th, 2017. If this resolution is so adopted, the deadline for submitting arguments with respect to it is August 11th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Mr. Encinas?
Thank you, Mr. Crouch, board members, Superintendent Holmes. At our last board meeting, the governing board gave direction to pursue with a possibility of calling for a 12% override election to be held on November 7th. We've contacted our legal counsel, and based on that input and direction, we have come back tonight to the governing board requesting you take action that will authorize or call for the election. The 12% override, eminent override election is being projected based on a projected enrollment of 15,000 students. And based on 15,000 students, that takes into account some decrease in ADM. I've projected that the override, a 12% override, would generate $9,475,000 of override funds and would require an assessment of a tax rate of $2.2285 per $100 of assessed valuation. In English, that means that an average homeowner in Sunnyside would pay an average approximately of $165 more in property taxes, or $13.70 per month. If the override is not successful, then the district will have to adopt an alternate budget, which I project would be $82,205,350. Based on the resolution that's been attached to the agenda item, input has been solicited from numerous sources in regards to the utilization of those funds. And I don't know if you want to go over Mr. Holmes would like to just summarize it, or?
Yeah, I want to point us to a section in this particular pamphlet. I'm not sure who's controlling
It's here.
is it there?
It's here.
There's a subsection in the actual accompanying documents, the voter informational pamphlet. If you keep scrolling right there, which includes a language, starts in the previous page, so I'd like to just kind of read it because I think it speaks to some purpose. The purpose of the eminent override is to increase student academic achievement and family and community engagement. I mean, that kind of, simply put, gets at some of the big core beliefs that we want to make sure it supports. Then it really goes into a little bit of further detail, saying that the override funding would provide enhanced athletic, fine arts, and enrichment opportunities in support of a well-rounded education described in the SUSD strategic plan. So tying it back to strategic plan and the graduate profile adopted by the SUSD governing board. I think it was important for our community to know that we do have a strategic plan, we do have a graduate profile, we have some goals that we are continuing to want to make sure that these funds support. These are the examples of, and we kind of redid the order, so many of you have seen this, but I think this goes into the level of detail that is a starting point for how the funds are going to be used, and particularly in areas that we know are of great interest in our community, such as athletics. I won't read every single one of these, but I want to make sure that the public knows that it's available for them to peruse. And then equally important, the governing board sees kind of the level of detail that's gotten into some of this. I do want to highlight one area in particular, because it does highlight something that came up multiple times in the presentation that we just made in Austin, which is the idea of staffing every elementary school with full-time specialists to include art, music, PE, librarian positions, and then the other one establishing 7-period days in all our middle schools by adding fine arts and career academy electives opportunities. Those two particularly have definitely at face value the exposure to these wonderful opportunities that we know add value to academic achievement. We know there's research support that, expanding our opportunities to fund career academies at lower levels so our kids get some of those basic skills so they can actually go into our high schools much more better prepared to receive the wonderful opportunities for certifications and job opportunities. However, one thing that's not explicit here that I just want to highlight, it also gives much more opportunities for our teachers to plan. And to collaborate with one another. That's an area that we've lost opportunities, and as much as there's some individual planning, it really is, in some of the things that we've discussed in a lot of the research, is the opportunity for teachers to collaborate with one another around the work. 7-period days, in my experience, have allowed that to occur much more frequently within content area or cross-contract teams, depending how we end up structuring that. And at the elementary level, specifically, that time to really have some time to think and plan. And so they're not explicitly stated here, but I wanted to name those and call those out particularly because it's been on my mind as we've been talking about opportunities for in this formative assessment world for teachers to improve their skills and knowledge. It's going to require us to make better use of time that they can have to plan and collaborate together. But other than that, it's stated in there. A lot of this is boilerplate language. As you can tell, Mr. Encinas did give a real some specificity around what it's going to cost our taxpayers. And so the formality here is to ask for your approval to then move forward with a ballot measure and then looking at ways in which we can get some of our community to write letters of support to go into the ballot.
Ms. Dawn?
And just to make sure that that everybody stays clear on what can and cannot happen once we do this. If we do go ahead and do this evening, then we have to be careful after that to not be here on the podium and the dais here talking about the override. Because at that point in time, our hands are tied. We're no longer able to talk about the override with the way we were talking at the last board meeting about how we want arts and how we want athletics and how we want, people at the elementary schools helping the parents and things like that. And also what I would like to see if we go ahead and vote for this tonight is also some, as we have in the past, but we have so many new employees, to have some training for the new employees too, so they don't find themselves in hot water. Give them some updates, give them, for the ones that have already done this and know it, just remind them, because it's been a couple, years. But also the ones, there's so many new employees that we have that have never heard the rules and regulations. I think this is your first, for example, as a board member. And so that way, just to make sure that as a board member, you don't find yourself in hot water. We give us all this information to remind us all, what the do's and don'ts of what you can and cannot do as a board, as a school district. We can still do things. Definitely, we can still, do things. We can still go door to door. But there are certain things that we can't do as a board. And so, if I would like to have the do's and don'ts for the board, the do's and don'ts for the employees, just to make sure that we don't find ourselves in any kind of a situation that was innocent. It's, usually an innocent situation, but that can get us into some hot water.
We will no longer be requiring athletes to use their uniform to go to the door. Okay.
Not again.
Yes.
Maybe we could do some webinars and actually post them so that people could review them and talk about what's appropriate at different levels. As individual board members, we can talk about it, but not on the dais.
Yes.
Not on school property. And
Yes, sir.
very good idea.
One last thing, Ms. Crouch, is that the resolution, that if the board does approve the resolution does call for the election to be held all by mail-in ballot. And we did contact the Pinal County Recorder's Office and confirmed that over 65% of our registered voters at Sunnyside already are in the permanent early voting list. And then the other factor is that the city of Tucson is also having an election. It's our understanding that they're going to have an all mail-in ballot also. So to have a regular ballot or a traditional polling election in our part in the city having a mail-in would create some
Confusion.
problems, some confusion in terms of the ballot itself, and cost. It would cost a lot more with a traditional polling.
Now, could we work with the city of Tucson to get our proposition placed at the top of the ballot, not the bottom?
We're going to discuss that.
Sorry.
Mr. Hernandez?
It's my understanding that because it's two different jurisdictions, city versus county, it's going to be an entirely separate ballot. Is that not the case?
Not sure, because my understanding is that they're trying to
Consolidate elections?
consolidate the election with the city. The city hasn't agreed upon it yet, but that's conversation and communication is underway right now.
When do we, sorry, relying on the city, when do we think that they'll know what the city is willing to agree to? Because it has caused confusion in the past when people get two separate ballots and then they say, oh, I already filled it out. Or one of the things that I've seen happen as well is people put both ballots in one envelope or one envelope for the city into the county envelope. So if we could get that consolidated, that would simplify and make things a lot better. But do we have an idea of when they'll be discussing?
No, sir, but we'll find out. Okay.
So we should call our city council members and urge them to adopt this quickly? Okay.
Any other discussion? Ms. Dawn?
If there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and make the motion. I would like to recommend the governing board approve the attached resolution calling for the 12% M&O override special election to be held on November 7th, 2017, mail ballot only, and that it also authorize Steve Holmes, superintendent, and/or Hector M. Encinas, CFO, to execute documents on behalf of the governing board necessary for the holding of the election.
Second?
Roll call?
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is proposed 2017-18 budget. Mr. Encinas.
Thank you, Mr. Crouch, board members, Superintendent Holmes. Attached to the agenda item is a proposed 2017-18 budget. The M&O budget reflects a decrease of 3.1% from $84.8 million to $82.2 million, or specifically to over $2.6 million from this year's budget. And specifically, the decrease is due to our decrease in our average daily membership, or ADM enrollment. We're projecting 15,200, and also a decrease in our budget balance carry forward amount from $4.5 million down to $3.1 million. The 2017-18 M&O budget amount also includes and reflects a 1.3% inflationary increase that the legislature approved, which is an increase of $48.22 per student, and that amounts to $963,417 additional dollars. And the 1.06% increase for teacher salary increases, which we project is going to be about $456,676. The governing board will be taking separate action at the budget adoption on July 11th, specifically with that 1.06%. Basically, what the legislature and the governor want school districts to do is reaffirm and and hold school districts accountable to the fact that they will be giving the teachers the additional 1.06% salary increase over and above what any school district would have given their teachers anyway. When I say teachers, the increase is limited to specifically classroom instruction. Okay, if I'm a counselor, if I'm a librarian, if I'm a psychologist, it will not, they will not be qualified for that 1.06%. It has to be in the classroom, function 1,000. It also applies to coaches, certified coaches. If I'm a certified teacher and I coached football and I was paid $5,000 to coach football, that $5,000 will be increased by 1.06% because it's considered classroom. So you might, at the next board meeting, we'll have more details regarding that, but just like to point out to the governing board that this proposed budget includes that increase. Let's see. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Other than that, I would request the governing board to approve the proposed budget as submitted.
Mr. Hernandez?
Mr. Encinas, I know you said you would be providing some more information at the next board meeting, but can you give for the board some context on whether this is being added as a one-time or if this is being added to the base?
My understanding, it's added to the revenue control limit, the base, based on actual expenditures in the prior year. So this is, the additional 1.06% will be applied to what was paid last year, or this year, this current year, in 1,000, function 1,000 salaries. And then for next year, the same thing will happen. And it's in a formula permanently.
Thank you, Mr. Encinas.
Ms. Dawn?
What do you think will be the average that the teacher will get?
Based on our average teacher salary, when you include, it'll be different depending on the teacher. In other words, say if a teacher got a base contract and they got a 6/5 and the coaching, well, the entire model will be subject to the 1.06%. So based on a projected $30 million of teacher salaries in function 1,000, an average teacher salary of about $42,000, about $420 per teacher, average.
That's for a new teacher.
Not for the, it'll be different, for, depending on all teachers.
Okay.
New teachers will not be eligible for it. In other words, if I'm a teacher first year, I will not be, to my understanding, I won't be eligible for the increase till next year. If I'm a teacher for a charter school or any other public school in the state of Arizona, and I come to Sunnyside, we will have to contact that charter school or that public school and find out how much did they get paid, and then increase that amount by 1.06% and give them an addendum for that.
Mr. Holmes?
Just, Mr. Crouch, and Mr. Encinas, can you just briefly walk us through procedurally why we have a proposed budget and then we approve a final budget on the 11th?
The proposed budget is our best estimate at this time, okay? It's high, and basically the governing board, if it decides to make any changes to the proposed budget, it can only decrease it. You can't increase it after the proposed budget is approved. Now, that's still subject to change, because even after you adopt the budget, based on our actual ADM enrollment during the course of the year, we'll have to revise our budget by May 15th of next year anyway. So.
Ms. Dawn?
There aren't any further questions. I would like to recommend that the governing board approve the proposed 2017-18 budget as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion passes.
Just one last thing, I forgot to mention that this budget also includes the board's commitment for salary increases to all employees to move a step on the salary schedule.
Mr. Hernandez?
Mr. Crouch, Mr. Encinas, to that point, if you could work with Dr. Bergman so that we can put an update on the website of where we are in terms of the movement, because I think one of the things that folks have been asking is, you guys said you were going to do this, now essentially show us the proof. I think it'd be, especially as we're going into an override and as we're heading into the next budget, just being able to detail the lengths that the district has gone to actually try and improve and stick to the commitment of moving folks up the scale. Yeah, the schedule. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Arizona School Board Association Summer Leadership Update. Ms. Dong?
Okay, just really quick, it was a great conference, I felt, the leadership conference. One of the things I think that we were all talking about there really goes into what Sunnyside has already been doing, but I know will be continuing and increasing, is looking at data. And we talked, we've talked for quite a few years now about the importance of data and how we need to take a look at it. And, when you first came, you were talking about where you were in Dallas, and one of the things you were talking about were formative assessments. And we can't just do the formative assessments and give it to the students and then not really take a look at what the assessments are telling us. We need to really take a look at it, analyze it, and put it together as far as data is concerned. So they did some really incredible things. In the Maricopa County Education Service Agency has put together some really neat information about success with data and some of the things that you need to do for continuously, when you do it continuously, all the way to when it's just for communication, like for your parents and stuff like that. And then they gave us this rubric, the Data Wellness Screener, and it goes all the way from saying that you do this continuously. I use data on an ongoing basis effectively. I use data for the purpose of improving student learning. Ethically, I apply ethical integrity by using data for its intended purpose. Use. Access, I access data to appropriately address the problem or question that's at hand. Interpret, I analyze and synthesize data. Act, I make decisions and take actions based on the data. And communicate, I communicate data results to various stakeholders. For example, the parents, district staff, school board, students, teachers, etc. And so you grade yourself as to how you do, how often do you do this? And then down here, if you do this a lot of different times and you do all of them, then you have strong data literacy, 28 to 25. So it's just a really neat rubric. And overall, how will you align to the definition of data literacy? Over here, if you get 13 or less, you need support. So they, talks about that. But I think that they did an excellent rubric on using data. And because we, and there's quite a few pages, I'm not going to go over it all, but I would like to give this to you as well as how they use it and why they use it. And it was an excellent workshop on this, and I think, and I felt like parts of it we're ahead of the game because we know the importance and we were doing a lot of things with data. That's why we got a whole new computer system last year, and that we're working on this year, because we know the importance of this in every aspect, not just in the classroom, but in the HR department and all the other departments that we have. We need, to make sure that we don't just get the numbers and then tuck them away. They might no longer be on shelves getting dust, but it doesn't do us any good if they're in the computer getting dust either. And so I think this would be really helpful and handy for us to use as a district. And there was a lot of other really neat things, including, the weather. It was nice and cool. But, there's all kinds of really great things that they teach us, how to use goals to become better board members and better leaders. And so there was, all that. One of the things, maybe one of you, maybe you'll talk about, or I can talk at a different time with you, is the President's Equity Challenge. This is ASBA's challenge to us, to look at these different things, to see if we talk a lot about equity, but are we truly addressing it? And this equity challenge that ASB has put together really lets us see, more clearly, are we truly, and if we are, that great in most areas, but is there an area that we need to address?
Ms. Quintero?
Yes, that was a really great board conference. I really liked it. They talked about civil discourse, and really truly training on how to listen and really truly listen. Not fall asleep while you're listening with your eyes open, but really truly listening and focusing on the problem, the issue, not the person, and learning how to make a board member better. And with attitude, motivational speakers were great, and the attitude speaker was pretty cool too. And I really liked the lady, the doctor, who came from Washington DC to talk about civil discourse. It was really good. I really wish we could bring her here. And also the workshops for the A through F grading system was highly confusing, and I'm still needing to learn some more about how they're deciding how they're going to do that. It's like, it was really confusing. And the weather was nice. It was nice. It lasted 3 days. Then we broke down in Phoenix. And that went right out the window.
You don't want to know about that part.
No, but other than that, it was a great conference. Thank you for sending us.
Yeah, the weather was nice, but when you're inside looking out at it, it's not as much fun as if you were outside it. But, because most of the time we were in the conference. Normally, the conference is the highlight for me. The ethics and civil discourse discussions, I think, were really apropos. I attended the same workshop Ms. Dong did on data. It was very, very informative. But to me, actually, I think I probably got more out of the Thursday night Jeopardy game. They had a Jeopardy game for the board members when we got there. And that was really intense. I expected that to be just kind of fun, just, you said not when you get called up in front and you have to answer some of the questions.
Board members can be competitive and mean.
Oh, yeah. But one of the categories was policy, another one was stats, roles and responsibilities, the law, at the board table, potpourri. And I mean, these weren't just high-level discussions. They were really in-depth, and I feel like I brought a lot back with me for it. So to me, that was kind of a real bonus for this trip. And we did break down the way back, but we get back. And Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Jaramillo weren't able to attend the conference, so.
Yeah.
We were on the road.
Yep, next time.
For Mr. Holmes.
Next on the agenda is request for executive session.
Mr. Crouch.
Someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Crouch.
Ms. Dawn?
I move that we approve the board recess into executive session for discussion of personnel pursuant to ARS-38-43103A1, legal advice pursuant to ARS-38-431.03A3, and student discipline pursuant to ARS-15-84.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo? Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. We're going into executive session. We'll take a 5-minute break first. We're reconvening. Mr. Hernandez.
Mr. Crouch, I move that the governing board approve the appointment of Tiffany McKee Emerson as principal at Sierra 2-8 for the 2017-2018 school year and be placed on principal step number 12.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo? Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Good luck.
Mr. Hernandez.
Mr. Crouch, I move that the governing board approve the appointment of Mr. Victor Mercado, Director of Public Information for the 2017-2018 school year, and be placed on step number 8 for director.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is suggestions for future agenda items. Does anyone have suggestions? Ms. Dawn?
At our next board meeting, I'd like to have a discussion about how we get future agenda items and the wording that we use and what we have to do and what we don't have to do, because it's something that we learned at the summer leadership. And I'd like to just let everybody take a look at this so that when we discuss it, they'll see what I'm talking about. When we do make a motion for a agenda item for the future, that we also take a look at this. We don't have to do it exactly. We definitely don't have to put Creighton on there.
So you're suggesting that we just have, we have a,
A little, yeah, just to make it formal.
okay.
Okay, and I'll just give everybody one of these so that way you can know what.
Are there any other suggestions for future agenda items?
I do.
Mr. Arno?
If I could request on the safety on our playground equipment and then report on what needs to be replaced and what needs to be taken down, so we go into any issues.
Yes, sir.
Can I get one to Mr. Holmes?
Are any other suggestions for future agenda items?
Not at this time.
Anyone like to move that we adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Ms. Quintero?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, move and second that we adjourn. Roll call?
Ms. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez?
Aye.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.